Hello, welcome to Tech Talk number 17, Embedding Techniques. I've got with me Jeffrey Hudgens, and I'm Ernesto Ongaro, host for the Tech Talk. And Jeffrey, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Hodgins, and I'm the technical marketing intern at Jaspersoft this summer.
Great, and you'll be hearing more from Jeff shortly. What we're going to do is start by giving you a little bit of a demonstration of what we've built. And Jeff is then, in the second part, going to give you a technical overview, little bit of example. So the intended audience for this talk is really, I'd say, web developers that are looking to integrate Jaspersoft and to really just get ideas of the techniques that are involved. We're not going to get down into the nitty-gritty or the actual code itself. It's just to give you more an overview. So the demo built with a few different technologies. We're going to show you dashboards, we're going to show you reporting, and we're going to show you analysis. So if you know Jaspersoft, we do all those things standalone, and we also do them embedded. So you'll see them all embedded. We're going to be using a few different technologies today, including PHP, jQuery, and Drupal, and of course Jaspersoft to provide the actual reports, dashboards, and analytic views. So with that, I'll go ahead and launch into the demonstration of the portal we built. So what you're seeing here is a Drupal portal. Drupal is a very popular content management system written in PHP. I won't get into too much of the details of the implementation. I'm just going to give you a front-end type of demo. So we'll go ahead and log into the portal, which will also log us into Jaspersoft. Immediately we'll see that a dashboard is loading. So this is making a call into Jaspersoft, loading it into an iframe, and showing us a dashboard. You might have noticed there that there were some load screens. You'll notice those throughout the demo. They're actually quite native, where you can make them seem native to your application. So that's one kind of little detail about integration. You can also have the user choose different options for reports and dashboards. So we'll be talking about different ways to do that. With dashboards, we're actually passing this in via a URL. So I'm going to change this over to non-consumable, and we'll see the dashboard change now. You should see some different values now. You'll also notice that you can interact with the dashboard. So zooming in to see some more details, or just hovering over to see specific values. What we can do as well is drill through to another report. We'll see how that kind of looks when it's integrated. So I'm going to drill through to this top 5 customer report. Again, we get that same load screen that we used and we're going to use throughout the demonstration. And we see this 9-page report come up. It's fairly well integrated into the page. We'll talk about some more embedding techniques as we go through. Click this back to dashboard button, takes us back to the dashboard. Remembers the input control for us. Now we're going to take a look at some example embedded reports. So there's 3 distinct ways that we're going to show you as techniques that you can choose to use. You can use iframes, so showing a report library and loading the report in iframes. You can use our REST or SOAP interface, or you can use a combination of those two. So REST, web calls, and an iframe to show the reports. So let's go through each one of those in the demonstration. So we start by looking at the embedded library view. So if you know the Jaspersoft standalone edition, this might look slightly similar. There's a few little points that we made here just to demonstrate that you can match the look and feel of your application with Jaspersoft, or Jaspersoft with your application. So very minor changes, but you'll see that when I hover over via theme, we're making it the same color as the menus. Same thing here when you choose to sort by a different name. So we'll go ahead and launch a report from here. We'll launch the geographic results by segment report. You see that pop up nicely. You see the same animations that we used before. The idea there is to show a consistent look and feel throughout the app. The report, it's I'd say maybe the easiest way to integrate, because it is just all running within an iframe. It also allows, I'd say, the most interactivity with the least amount of work. So allowing users to change chart types. That's all something we can do within our application. And without you having to do anything, you get that interactivity. We'll look at another example report. We'll take a look at this interactive sales report. I'd say one of the advantages of using the iframe method for embedding is that you don't have to worry about input controls. So input controls are these options here. I can choose product family, I click drink, I choose product department, I choose dairy, and you see that the options there are changing as I'm choosing. Now Jaspersoft does all that for you. In the next example, I'm going to show you how you could build that yourself using the REST API. Just know that there's an option to where all that's already done for you with iframes. Hide away these options, and I'll also show you a little bit of interactivity within the report. So being able to hide columns within this type of report, or sort columns, sort descending or ascending, that kind of thing can be done all interactively. Again, another little finer point is you'll see via the theme we're matching the color of the report. And we could certainly go further into that. We could match fonts, we could match styling so that it really looks like it's fully integrated. Another advantage here would be that pagination's already built into the report viewer. So we handle that for you fairly well. Other methods, you'd have to write your own. Pagination. And that's basically what we're going to see next. We're going to see the second way to embed Jaspersoft reports. So I'll click Report Library and Viewer via REST. So this is very different than what I've shown you up until now, in that everything you see here is native to this Drupal application. Jeff will explain a little bit more about the architecture behind it, but I'll show you how you can make this look any way you want. We chose to render the repository in this tree view. You could show these reports however you wanted to. Like, we could easily, in this drop-down menu, show a drop-down which shows reports. You could really do whatever you want. So let's go ahead and pick a report. I want to choose the freight report. So I click there. Again, we use the same animation just to keep a consistent look and feel throughout the application. We see the report pop up, and we also see the report options menu. So if you recall just a minute ago when I ran the other report in the iframe, you got to see that there were some input controls and that they were rendered by Jaspersoft. Instead of being rendered by Jaspersoft, they're now being rendered by this application. So we get a list of countries that the user can choose from. We'll choose Argentina. We can change the dates, and we can change order IDs. Click this button, and a web service call is made, and it brings back our report. We see there that we have ship country Argentina, some dates, order ID, etc. We can also export via API. So I can choose one of the export formats. We'll go with PDF. And we see a nicely generated PDF report that comes from that interface. Another thing of note here is let's go ahead and run the accounts report. The accounts report doesn't actually have any input controls, so as soon as that's loaded, we should see them disappear. Hide this container there. You see all the nice animations that we built into this. You'll notice here we have some pagination. So we are actually handling that through the app. You can make an API call to do app pagination. We actually chose to just load the entire contents of the report and then hide and show pages as they scroll through, which makes it flow fairly well. But just keep in mind, if you're going to choose to go this route, you're going to have to do your own pagination. You're going to have to do your own input controls. But as you see, it gives you the most flexibility as to the layout of the screen and some of the finer points in the interactivity. The third way that we do reporting is a combination of those two. So in this example, you see the same repository browser. So I can click Public Samples Reports. It loads a list of reports, and I can execute the freight report. Instead of setting it up via web services calls, though, what it does is just sets up an iframe for you. So we see the same report that we had before in the REST API. I can do the same stuff. I can export it, and I can click these options here to modify the country. The big difference is how it was invoked. So just know that there's many types of possibilities for embedding reports. So we're going to go into the third and final part of the demonstration. So you saw dashboards, you saw reports. Now let's get into how you can allow users to create their own analytical views or modify existing ones. So we'll start with this single analytic view. Give that just a second to load. And what you get is our analysis view. You get a list of fields, list of measures. We can modify the report however we'd like. So for example, we've got on the rows, we've got country and store type. And it allows us to zoom through between basically all the orders. So this is all the store sales, store cost, and units for 2013. Break it down by country, and then furthermore break it down by store type. Let's say we wanted to add another dimension to that. Easy enough. Go into stores, we'll go into regions, and we'll go ahead and add district between country and store type. So I drag that in, and you can see now that district appears, and I can slice that by district. So Mexico has 2 districts, Canada and US have just the one. So this isn't going to be a full featured demo of everything you can do in our ad hoc interface. We have other videos that'll show you that. If you don't know it, you can create charts and crosstabs and tables. What we're going to do is save this into the repository. We'll call it the Tech Talk demo. And we'll click Save. This is now going to give you a view into the repository. So I'm going to choose to save into the one folder that I have access to. It's called My Folder. We'll call it the Tech Talk view. Click Save. And now if I click My Analytics and I go to the Analytic View library, this is similar to the report library before. It's basically just filtered down to show only available ad hoc views. And I want ones that are modified today. So I click anytime today, and I see I have the Tech Talk view. So an end user could easily click there and get right into the analysis view that we had created. What's interesting about this as well is maybe the analytic view library isn't for everybody, and you just want to embed standard reports that are created from there. There's a feature here where I can right click, click Create Report, and a report is essentially a dumbed down version of a view. I'm going to go ahead and save this. We'll keep it in my folder. We'll call it the Tech Talk report. And now what's interesting is it's available via the 3 access methods in reporting as well. So if I want to open it up with our REST API, click Samples, go into my folder, and we'll see the Tech Talk report has appeared. And I can go ahead and render it, and if there's any options to it, and there's one that allows me to choose only sales that are greater than a particular number. So we'll go ahead and change it to 19, and I'll run the report with input controls. And we should see some different data coming back from the database there. Gets a little squished. Have to change the label formatting there, but that's the idea behind this portal. So now for the second part of the Tech Talk, we're going to switch over to Jeff, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the details of this sample. Go ahead and log out.
So I'm going to go ahead and give you a bit of a overview of the project architecture and the way I went about implementing the features you just were demoed. So you could look at the project architecture as having 5 main levels. The first would be Jasper Report Server, which also comes with a standalone interface, but in our case we're using the functionality and we're embedding it in our own application. Although you can still use it to administrate very easily. The next one is the REST Web Services API, which we use to communicate with Jasper Report Server in our application, and it allows us to pass information and objects back and forth. The PHP Rest Client is an easy way of using the REST Web Services API, and that is handles everything such as authentication and repository calls, etc. It's written in PHP, so it's easy to embed in an application such as Drupal or anything else. jQuery, the JavaScript library, is very easy to use, and we can very easily wrap the PHP REST client in that, call the functions we need, and embed it pretty much anywhere. Drupal is the application that we're embedding it in, and jQuery allows us to embed any of the functionality that you've seen in the above layers into Drupal in the content window of each page. One of the reasons for using that is that you don't have to rely on maybe slightly more complex methods of embedding PHP, but it's just JavaScript, which you can embed anywhere. And so I'm going to take a real case example of using these layers, and in this process there's 4 methods, and this will give you back JSON data of the repository, all the reports. So the REST Web Services API allows us to make a raw REST call which will return all of the report units from the repository from the folder we specify downwards. It will recurse downwards through them. So the PHP REST client is what we use to make those REST calls in an easily authenticated way, and it just bundles it up. The client repository service is a part of the PHP Rest Client which handles all of the repository calls that you need and allows you to interact with them easily. And runReport.php is a script that you write to construct and initialize the PHP Rest Client, um, and we can use that to call any of the functionality we need from jQuery. So here is an example of getting the repository and the information that we need from it. So with the runReport.php script, you can easily call the function and pass the arguments you need. There's just a small function at the bottom of runReport that allows you to call them in this way. So this is the JSON you get back if you call it in such a manner where you call runReport.php, you pass the function, in this case getRepo, and the URI is from the public folder down. So as you can see in the demo, the repository has all of the report units downwards from the public samples reports, and then my folder was also added. So the JSON in this case passes back an array of each report, and it will give the information in this case of name, the URI, and the type. And in this case they're all going to be report units, but you can specify whatever type of resource you would like. So once we get that JSON file, we can easily represent that data in any way we would like, and all the server has to do is pass back that JSON. So in this case we took our jQuery and that JSON file, and we exploded out those URIs into the repository tree you see in front of you. And the input control call is done in much the same way, except in this case I used an example of doing a raw REST call from jQuery, which is also very simple. The REST API is documented very well in the web services guide, which you can find in the resources at the end of this presentation. So when you click one of those reports, it makes a REST call with the report service from the REST client in jQuery to get the information, and it injects it into the div which displays that page. And for instance, once you run that report, it will make another request with the REST API to receive the input controls that you see above: country, request date, and order ID. And it's the same. If you press the export button, it makes a REST call which will download the data for you. And that's the end of the presentation. Thanks for listening. And you can see any of the resources you need are there.
Great. Yeah, we'll leave this up. I'm sure you can pause the video and get to them. Just to let you guys know that basically the two main ways that we talked about embedding was with web services, and we talked about embedding with iframes. With web services, if you go to community.jaspersoft.com documentation, you'll find the web services guide, and that really walks you through what's available there and what the returns are. You can get XML or JSON. And then there's this wiki page here. It's a really good one, embedding using the HTTP API, which tells you what's available there, working with themes and that kind of thing. And they're good launching points to get ideas from. So great, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on and for this sample. It's a really good example, and I hope it gives you guys out there listening some ideas as to what you can do with your projects.